We'll have over 3,000 sockeye salmon coming up the stream to spawn. 90% of all salmon, actually, it's really higher. It's more like 95 to 97% of all salmon returned within 6 feet of where they were born. They imprint on the smell of the stream. And I'm just talking kind of softly simply because we're in an area where we could have a lot of bear. So I'll talk louder once we get away from the stream. Just don't want to scare off any bears if there's any in the area so that we could get an opportunity to see them. So what they're doing is the females will make a red, an REDD. It's a bowl-shaped depression in the gravel, sometimes called a salmon bed. And she'll make up to 6 of those. And they're fertilized by multiple males, so it's a way for them to increase their genetic diversity. You can see a bear trail right here too. You might even see some fresh bear prints in there. Looks like I can see one right there. It's maybe from yesterday. So anyways, the bears will come here and feed as often as they like, and then they'll maybe take a little nap next to the stream. So they're probably napping up on the higher ridge right there, or maybe eating some berries. We have a lot of berries this year, so they'll eat salmon and then they'll eat some berries and take a nap and then just keep repeating the process. So they're building up their fat stores. The bears will only eat the eggs, the entrails, and the brains of the salmon. They leave the rest for up to 115 other species to feed on. They actually rot from the inside out, so they are dying as they're making their migration to their spawning grounds. And that waterfall we hear in the background is as far as the salmon can go. They can't climb that waterfall. It's quite a nice big fresh one in the back there, quite red and vivacious, really full of vigor. But this one here you can see is already deteriorating quite rapidly. So they only get one chance to spawn, so they really fight hard for that to be a successful opportunity. So they will attempt to spawn if they haven't found their spawning grounds right up until they're barely alive. So for them it's really important. And all salmon spawn once and die, so everything that's green here is actually green because of the salmon. So they actually fertilize the land, the watershed, and the sea. So there's isotopes of salmon even in the tops of our trees. So they're fertilizing the plankton in the sea, and they're fertilizing all the green things here. So we actually have salmon partially to thank for the reason why we're alive, because plankton produce about 72% of the world's the oxygen on Earth. And so they actually get fertilized from the salmon as well. We have the largest naturally wild-producing Pacific salmon population in the world. We supplement that with 38 public and private hatcheries. So in Alaska, we have other types of salmon. These are called sockeye or red. If you're a local, you're probably going to just call it a red. And the other salmon are king salmon, which are Chinook, coho, which are silver, dog or chum salmon. But if you're going to find that in a restaurant, it'll be called kita, because you probably wouldn't order a dog salmon or a chum salmon. But if you order a kita salmon, you probably have no idea what it is, and it sounds really sexy. So they do a little marketing on that poor salmon with all those crazy names. So, and then we also have pink salmon, which are also humpback salmon. And then we have kokanee that only spawn in the freshwater here in Alaska. But there are other salmon species that can live their entire life in freshwater, like in the Great Lakes, for example, and also in some inland seas and other places around the world. They become very predatory. They fight each other. You can see them fighting right now. They don't want any other salmon to be spawning. They have this urge for their genetics to be the one to continue on the species, not anything else. So they'll fight each other. There'll be gaping holes sometimes. The dog salmon get their name because they actually grow canine teeth and they get long in the tooth, and they'll rip their kind of competitors open with gaping holes in the side. And so when the salmon eggs are placed in the salmon red, that's done so that they don't get washed downstream and become non-viable. And unfortunately for those eggs, they have a perilous journey from the first seconds that they arrive. So you probably saw all those gulls in the little stream that we passed by on the way out here, called Lemon Creek, in the Lemon Creek Valley. And all those gulls were just waiting for the eggs. And they'll eat almost every last egg. They'll eat every egg if they have a chance. But usually there might be 1 or 2 eggs that nestles down in the gravel and might be somewhat hidden so those birds don't get everything. But it's very few that actually survive. They can have anywhere from 15,000 to maybe 170,000 eggs, depending on the variety. And so they also have very, very high mortality rate. Each salmon spends a different amount of time in freshwater, and they then return back to the sea, and they grow up so prolifically here because of the glaciers. The glaciers are providing really great nutrients, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later. So I could talk a lot more about it, but I think we'll continue on. If you guys have any questions about salmon or what we're seeing in this area here, feel free to ask me as we hike up. We're going to be seeing this creek in a few more times during the day. However, this is going to be the best opportunity to see the salmon where we're not inundated with a lot of other visitors. And the end of the trip, if we have extra time, we'll be able to stop in another view, but there'll be a lot of other people there and it'll be hard to hear. We will see this stream in just a few minutes again, but it'll be above the waterfalls where they can't go up any farther. So in the next few minutes between this stop and our next stop, our next two stops are probably our most likely to see bears until the end of the trip. As we hike up the mountain, we're not going to probably see bears because we're leaving the area with